Hi, this is Mark Wahlstrom, the president of Wahlstrom and Associates, and I am your host here on Speaking of Settlements, a featured broadcast of the Legal Broadcast Network. Well, today's today's discussion is going to be entitled The Golden Age of Structured Settlements. It's a follow-on of a blog post that I wrote about 2-3 weeks ago, and you can find that on thesettlementchannel.com along with all of our other written commentary. But I wanted to add to it and update it in light of what's been going on with the insurance industry. Every time I come on the air lately, it seems that another major financial institution is either in trouble, is in the process of a bailout. And over the course of this year, we've seen Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, we've seen Washington Mutual, Countrywide, Lehman Brothers up in smoke, Bear Stearns gone, AIG, the single largest bailout of any financial institution in U.S. history. And now today we're looking at the buyout or the government infusion of cash, if you will, of Citibank, the largest bank in the United States. Unbelievable times, really kind of unprecedented. Really until you go back and look at history. One of the things, and actually one of the books I've been reading lately, it's a brilliant book by John Steele Gordon, tremendous author, historian. And the book that he wrote a few years ago is called The Empire of Wealth. It's about the history of American economic power. And probably one of the greatest books I've read to really discuss the sweep of American history, what's happened in certain credit markets, what's happened in other panics, not just the Great Depression, but other situations all through history with central banks, with financial panics, with depressions and recessions. And you begin to realize that while this is certainly dramatic, while a lot of this is unprecedented, to our modern eyes, that we're really seeing nothing that's terribly new. It is a classic deflationary cycle. We're seeing assets and property that had been supported with mountains of debt deflate as it becomes apparent that those debts need to be liquidated and sold. And the resulting deflationary cycle is now driving our country into a recession and imperiling a lot of the financial institutions that we're talking about. The difference at this point in time is that we have what I would call an activist Federal Reserve. We have an activist government where they're going to pump as much money and as much liquidity into the system and cram it into the system as they can to avoid another depression. Now, it's quite clear, and I think economists have already made certain or made the proclamation that we are in a recession. I think the average person is probably well aware of that if you look at your current business situation and cycles. But really, what we're looking at, and many people are very concerned about the safety of banks, about the safety of insurance companies, the safety of stock brokerage firms, hedge funds, and they're wondering, where do you put your money? Well, the people that we talk to, trial lawyers, personal injury recipients, those are people who are acutely concerned about the safety of their money. They're getting a personal injury settlement. They're getting a court settlement. It represents the financial compensation for a tremendous loss, usually a death, a terrible accident, a disability. Something horrible has happened, and these people have not won the lottery. They've just been compensated for the lost income or the lost earnings that have resulted as a result of an injury that wasn't their fault. They need to do something with their money. They need to make a decision with their money. And really over the last 20 years, those of us in the structured settlement business have been competing against other entities, banks, money market funds, junk bonds, mutual funds, high technology stocks, and most recently, real estate. Constantly we would talk to people about the safety, the security of a structured settlement. And we would almost be laughed at to say, well, why would I take a structure paying 5 or 6% when I can put it into real estate and I'm getting 15, 20% a year? I can put it in tech stocks and I'm getting 15 or 20% a year. Or I know somebody who has a hedge fund and I can put it in there and I can get 15, 25% a year. Well, as we can all see and as we've all witnessed over the last 3 years, each of those particular areas, and now the banks have been having problem after problem after problem with solvency, liquidity, and people are right to ask where is the best place to put their money. And I'm here to tell you, as a person who's been in the structured settlement industry for almost 30 years now, that we are about to enter what I can almost assuredly tell you is the golden age of structured settlements. There's a confluence of events going on that I believe are going to drive not only the trial lawyer, but the average citizen that is facing a decision about what to do with their settlement money toward a structured settlement, and for very good reasons and for very sound reasons. Not just because they're afraid of banks, not just because they're afraid of a stockbroker, or just because their mutual fund is down 40%, or that they've seen real estate crash. They're going to do it because it's going to provide the greatest options for them, the greatest return, and the greatest value. And what I'd like to do is just lay out for you just a couple of the reasons why. First thing is, I believe the life insurance industry is going to come out of this financial disaster largely unscathed. Forget the fact that AIG right now is, surviving as a corporate entity thanks to government cash and government intervention. The fact is, and we've covered this many times before here on the Settlement Channel, the life insurance companies that make up AIG were always solvent, are exceptionally well reserved, and are going to pay all of their claims. The life insurance industry had its Waterloo moment, if you will, in the late 80s and early 90s, when the junk bonds and some of the real estate mistakes that were created in portfolios, accounting and reserve rules that allowed parents and subsidiaries to transfer cash back and forth. With Executive Life, with Confederation Life, with Mutual Benefit, many of those companies that became insolvent or were put into forced liquidation at that time, even though the policyholders came out whole, tremendous reforms were made back at that time by the National Association of Insurance Commissioners and the life companies themselves, where we now have the strongest reserve requirements. We have strict controls and restrictions on the type of assets and number of risky assets that life companies can hold. As we come through this cycle, I think people are going to come to the realization and have an awareness that life insurance companies are, if not the safest, certainly among the very safest places for people to put their money. As I've said before, don't confuse stock price and don't confuse the earnings of a publicly traded life insurance or casualty company with the safety of the underlying insurance company. They're two totally different things. And as the dust clears and we come through this, and we will come through it, we always have and we always will. America's a great country and a great economy. But as we come through this, people are going to realize that the insurance companies are among the safest places to put their money. So that's the first thing that really is in our favor. The second element is that with this huge liquidity and printing press process that the Treasury and the Federal Reserve are under to provide liquidity, to get these institutions through this dislocation in one piece, there is no way, once we get past this deflationary cycle, that we are not going to see a substantial monetary inflation as a result of it. There's going to be a devaluation of the dollar. With the devaluation of the dollar, we're going to see higher interest rates. With higher interest rates will come higher bond and money market rates, and that's going to drive up the yields on structured settlements, because most structured settlements are financed through the purchase of bonds, corporate, government, or otherwise, fixed income investments. As those rates go up, the rates and yields on structured settlements over the next 2 to 5 years are going to go up along with them. So we're going to be looking at a period of time, one of those cycles, those interest rate cycles that we go through every 10 years in our economy, is that it'll be a particularly opportune time to buy guaranteed investment products. And we're going to be, as an industry, in a position to be selling one of the very best and most competitively priced guaranteed investment contracts that's out there in the structured settlement annuity. The third element is we're going to be seeing higher taxes, particularly on high wage earners. Now, we've got massive government deficits. I think the new administration, the new Congress, and many of the states have already signaled that while they're not going to raise taxes on the poor or the working middle class or even the middle class, that we are going to see some very high tax rates, or at least increases in tax rates on high earners. And if people are getting money in a tax-free structure, and if the structure qualifies under Section 130 and Section 104 of the Code, all of the payments are received income tax free. If marginal tax rates go up, the relative attractiveness of a structured settlement or a tax-free income goes up as well. So again, the fact that we are likely to see some marginal increase in tax rates really over the next 2 to 4 years, again, provides greater benefit for a tax-free vehicle such as a structured settlement.